Back in 1936, the 500K was the most beautiful sports car Mercedes-Benz produced, and it was also the most expensive. This graceful 100 horsepower supercharged classic was only for the ultra-rich. As there weren't many ultra-rich around back in the Great Depression, only 34 were made. Today, an original would sell for well over $10 million. At the 2016 downtown Windsor BIA Willette Avenue rolling tour, I ran into a guy named Fred. Like many of us, he's a retired guy. And he just happens to own a 1936 Mercedes-Benz 500 sports car. Oh, it's not a real 1936 Mercedes, but who cares? To him, it's his dream car, and he's put years of work into making it what it is today. And that's something we can all identify with. Fred did most of the work himself, starting out with practically nothing.
When I bought the car, I got the fenders, I got the cowl section, I got the grill shell, and I got the frame, which was a 1972 Ford frame, which was in pretty rough shape.
The car has now been on the road for 20 years and is driven regularly, and it still looks like new. It was 4 years in the making. Fred is not the kind of guy to walk away from a challenge.
Well, to get the frame in good shape, we pulled the body off, and I had to rebox all the frame with new sheet metal and do a lot of body work on it.
The fiberglass body was extremely old when Fred bought it and full of defects. Defects that required a lot of work.
When we sanded it down, there were hundreds and hundreds of pinholes after we got through the gel coat to try and get the body straight. It was really wavy, and a lot of hours went into to get the body nice and straight for paint.
As for the engine, what a disaster. It not only had a bad rod knock, but as soon as it was fired up, a motor mount broke and the engine dropped a full 4 inches.
When I first got it, it had a 351 Cleveland in it. That wasn't any good, so I ended up getting a Camaro donor car, and we used the 350 Chevy in it along with the transmission.
In every project, a lot of creativity is required to achieve a final result. And Fred was up to the task of shaping the hoods.
What we did was we used 2 different size welding tanks with some angle iron anchored to my back deck, and we got the 2 different round sections of the hood with the 2 different size tanks, with bending it with a piece of 2x4 and a lot of handwork, cutting with shears and so on to make it fit properly.
The inventiveness didn't stop there. It extended to many things, right down to the gas cap cover hinge.
I tried 4 automotive hinges from the auto wreckers, and they just wouldn't close right, and it didn't have the right angle. And I was down doing the laundry one day, and I'm taking the clothes out of the washing machine, putting them in a dryer, and it was a Maytag dryer. And I was watching the way the door was opening and closing, and I thought, man, I'm going to give this a try. So I went down to the Maytag, the closest Maytag dealer, and asked him if he had a hinge like this. And he said, yeah. He said, give me $5 for the whole door with 2 hinges on it, and it worked perfectly.
When Fred bought the car, there were no doors on it, and so he had to make them. And again, reach into his bag of tricks for solutions.
I was surprised myself when the car was finished, because even the doors alone, they're bear claw latches, which they usually use on hot rods. They're Ford replica handles on the outside. They're Volkswagen on the inside, and armrests from a Chevette. And the suicide door lock is actually used for a patio door that I had gotten from Home Depot. And it took just probably 3 days just to bend all the linkages up so the door would open and close properly.
Reproduction or not, this is quite a car, and mostly hand-built. Everything about it gleams. The original 36 Mercedes-Benz 500K came with fender lights, but where do you find these today? These fender lights were borrowed from a 1941 Ford Coupe, and they still look like they belong. The aluminum trim around the engine compartment vents came off the shelf from Home Depot and were never intended as automotive trim. In this case, making a cup of coffee proved to be the inspiration for shaping the trim ends.
I was in the house one day and I just went to make a cup of coffee, and I got a spoon out of the drawer, and I said, you know, it was almost the same width, the handle, as the molding, and what I used is the end of the handle on the spoon to get the design that I needed, and I ended up using that, spraying a little primer, and then getting the piece of molding over the grinder and shaping it, and then learning how to polish stainless and aluminum.
The seats came from a K car and were completely rebuilt and reupholstered. The dash is handmade of solid oak with VDO gauges. All it takes is inspiration and a lot of imagination. Like a lot of us, Fred has been interested in cars since he was a kid. It's always been his dream to own a classic.
I always loved cars. Used to go to Checkered Flag when I was a kid and watch them race cars there, and I just had a love of cars my whole life.
That's another of our beautiful Windsor and area cars that Fred and his wife Barbara enjoy cruising around in. Like every restoration, there's always lots more to tell. But Fred will fill in the blanks if you happen to see him cruising around in the warmer weather. Thanks for viewing. I hope you enjoyed. Have a safe winter, and come spring, we'll see you at the car shows and cruise nights.